Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Emily and I love to talk about books and reading. Today we are going to chat through my fall TBR. I am such a mood reader and I have been reading so much less than I would like lately, so I don't know exactly how many of these books I'm going to get through, but I am prioritizing reading the books that are on my shelf and utilizing the library and Libby with my Kindle so that I'm not spending so much money on books, and that has been going really well. I've read some books from my shelf that I really enjoyed and I was kicking myself for not reading them sooner, so let's get right into it. Let's start off with some reread potentials. I'm not a huge rereader of books when it comes to books that I've read within the last 5 years. I would say, like, I'll reread a book that I haven't read since I was a kid, but if I've read it relatively recently, I just am not super excited to read them. But two very fall/wintry books that I think would make excellent rereads are The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which I read a couple of years ago and loved. I read this in the winter in Chicago and it was just the best vibe. This book is just so cold. It's probable that you've heard of it, but if you haven't, this is about a group of students who get involved in some crazy stuff, and, well, let's not spoil it. We'll just start off, instead of spoiling the book for you by saying what happens, I'm just going to read you the very first sentence of the prologue. The snow in the mountains was melting and Bunny had been dead for several weeks before we came to understand the gravity of our situation. That sums up the book and the vibe of the book. So sort of a mystery thriller, but more of just like a dark academia modern classic, I would say. I would call it a modern classic even though it's pretty new. My next reread potential is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which is another dark academia because obviously it's fall and that's the time for dark academia, cozy vibes. Even though it's still in the 90s in Texas, we're leaning in to the days where it is 85, and that is winter for us. This is a dark academia fantasy that involves secret societies and a college campus and magic, and it has everything that you could want in a winter book. This book follows Alex, and she can see ghosts, and she's inducted into this secret society that kind of helps regulate other secret societies. So she's, because she can see ghosts, like overseeing the rituals, and hits the fan. So definitely a great read, really well paced, just a book that I feel if you like fantasy and dark academia, you would like this book. My sister recommended it to me and I feel like that makes it all the more special because we both loved it. All right, moving on to books that I have not yet read. I have Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, which is, I believe, her like biggest book or one of her biggest books. My old roommate got this for me for my birthday and I've been saving it for like Halloween, October, because I feel like they're mysteries, and this is about 10 strangers who go on a vacation and then get picked off one by one, is what I understand of this. I've read 2 Agatha Christie books before. I read Murder on the Orient Express and, oh man, what was that book that got made into a movie like last year? I read it last year when I was just starting my YouTube channel. It was, I think it was called Halloween Party, but I didn't love Halloween Party. I did like Murder on the Orient Express, but I'm excited to read another Agatha Christie book, and it's been recommended to me by a few different people in my life, so that should be good, a solid read, and it's shorter, so that honestly might be something that I pick up sooner rather than later because I'm not super into the book that I'm reading now and kind of feel like I need to mix it up. Next on my shelf is this book called Be Sure by seanan mcguire. V.E. Schwab has a little call out on this book that says, one of the most extraordinary stories I've ever read. This was described to me as kind of like a more dark, like Alice in Wonderland vibe. The back of the book says, children have always disappeared under the right conditions, slipping through the shadows under a bed or at the back of a wardrobe, tumbling down rabbit holes and into old wells and emerging somewhere else. But magical lands have little need for used up miracle children. And I think it's like kind of pays homage to the kids in different fantasy series like Alice in Wonderland and the Chronicles of Narnia. That is my understanding of it so far. And this is 3 books in one. And it's, the first one is Every Heart a Doorway. So it's like a series that's in this one book, a series of short stories. And I'm excited to read this, and I'm gonna count it as 3 books because I'm slowly falling behind my reading goal and I'm allowed to do whatever I want. My friend got this for me for my birthday and I trust her judgment in her knowledge of what I like, because she's recommended me books before that I've liked. So thank you, Rayan, if you're watching this. I'm very excited to read this fall. Next on my shelf is a book that I'm gonna buddy read with my best friend, and it's Little Women by Louisa Alcott. And I actually read this when I was quite a bit younger, so I know that it's a classic that I can get through, because I think like in elementary school, so I know that I can do it now, and I'm really excited. I think this is more of a winter book, like definitely in the colder months. I do have a trip coming up at the end of October, and I need like a bigger book because I'm gonna be on the plane for like 9 hours. This might be it, but I have to coordinate with my best friend so that we can read it at the same time. I think it'll just be a really sweet book to read together, and I believe it's gonna impact me differently than it did when I was in elementary school, and I'm excited to see if I remember it, and then of course excited to rewatch the movie after it because I love Florence Pugh. Another book that has been sitting on my shelf for quite a while, my mom got this for me for Christmas last year, is Shady Hollow, and this is described as Watership Down meets Mickey Spillane. I don't know what Mickey Spillane is, but I certainly remember Watership Down scarring me as a young child. This is about little woodland creatures that experience a murder. They're living in this like little town and there's a murder. I'm intrigued by this, definitely feels like fall to me. All right, and then a few books that I have on my list that I do not have physical copies of, but will be getting from Libby or Half Price Books if I have to. I put one on hold called Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. I recently read a Greek mythology retelling of the Trojan War. It was called 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes, and I love Greek mythology retellings from the female perspective. I just think that they are so interesting. A lot of the stories I'm not super familiar with, so it's great to hear them for the first time from the female perspective. I think that that's really special. Ariadne is the sister of the Minotaur, I believe, so it will have the Minotaur in it. That is my understanding of it. I'm not 100% sure because I've not yet read it. It has like a 3.8 on Goodreads, so I don't think it's gonna be like the Song of Achilles or Circe's level, but I am really hopeful for it. And if you have any Greek mythology retelling recommendations, please give them to me, because I grew up with Percy Jackson, and so any Greek mythology retelling just hits because of Percy Jackson. I think like that, I just love them so much. They have such a special place in my heart. I also would like to read the second book in the Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies series. It's called Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. I have this on hold on Libby as well. That was just like such a cozy fantasy that felt really slow paced, and I think that it'll be really great. It's a little longer than the first one, so I'm interested in what it has to offer. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies follows this woman who is quirky and a little socially awkward, and she studies fairies and is writing a field guide for them and gets tied up with this charming, beautiful man. And cozy, slow-paced fantasy romance, but not like super heavy on the romance, ensues. I thought it was just delightful. The words that Heather Fawcett uses in Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, like I was looking things up over and over again, but they were so quaint. It was like the SAT vocabulary words that you learn and you're like, oh, I love that word. That kept happening to me in that book, and I love when that happens. That'll be a great one to read on Kindle so that I can easily click and see what the words mean versus having to Google them. And then finally, in 2022, I was reading Harry Potter, and I left off on the fourth one. So I finished the fourth, and I need to pick them back up and start reading the fifth Harry Potter. I watched those movies when I was a child, but I've never actually read through all of the books. So I need to pick up Harry Potter number 5, which is The Order of the Phoenix, and I'm really excited for that one because I love that movie, and I know that there's just so much more nuance in the books, and it made me understand, especially number 4. Reading the book and then watching the movie, I was mind blown by how many things in the movie I didn't pick up on that related to the book, and it was just such a cool experience. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading The Order of the Phoenix. In my head, it's just gonna be a solid read that I know that I'll enjoy, so I'm not like in a rush for it, if that makes sense. but I did place a hold on it for Libby, and it will be here I'm 16th in line actually, so that's not too bad. I'll have that on my Kindle because it's big. Maybe that can be my plain book. I think that that's like a long one, but it'll go by fast, so I'm excited for that. And those are my fall/winter TBR/hopefuls. It was so nice to chat with you all. It feels like it's been a while. Let me know what y'all are reading. Let me know if you've read any of the books on my TBR list. I would love to hear opinions, thoughts about them, and any recommendations that you guys might have. Thank you so much and have a lovely day. Bye.